The smell of cinnamon and butter filled the kitchen at 47 Maple Drive, the way it had every Sunday evening for the past 30 years. I stood at the counter, my hands dusted with flour, rolling out the dough for Kevin's favorite snickerdoodle cookies. The recipe card was spotted with age, the ink faded from my mother's handwriting, but I knew the measurements by heart. 2 cups of flour, 1.5 cups of sugar, a pinch of cream of tartar. Outside the window above the sink, the October sun was setting, casting long shadows across the backyard where Robert had built a swing set when the boys were small. The swing set was gone now, replaced by overgrown grass I couldn't quite keep up with anymore. My knees weren't what they used to be. Neither was my back, but I still baked on Sundays because that's what mothers do. That's what I've always done. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant murmur of voices from upstairs. Kevin was home, as he always was these days. 6 months without a job, and his bedroom had become a permanent residence. The childhood posters of basketball players replaced by empty energy drink cans and the glow of his laptop screen at all hours. I told myself it was temporary, that he was figuring things out. That's what mothers tell themselves. I slid the first batch of cookies into the oven and set the timer. 14 minutes. I wiped my hands on the dish towel, the one with the faded rooster print, and decided to bring Kevin a glass of water. He'd been holed up in his room since lunch, and I worried he wasn't drinking enough. The central heating made the upstairs stuffy, and I'd asked him twice to open a window. The hardwood floor creaked under my feet as I climbed the stairs, the sound familiar and comforting. I'd walked these steps thousands of times, carrying laundry baskets, bringing the boys their lunches during summer break, checking on them when they had nightmares. The walls were lined with framed photos: Kevin's high school graduation, Derek's wedding in Phoenix, I'd flown out alone, Robert and me on our 20th anniversary. We looked so young in that photo, so unaware of what was coming. Kevin's door was slightly ajar, and I heard laughter. Brittany was over again. She practically lived here too, though she never offered to help with dishes or even bring her plate to the sink. I paused at the top of the stairs, the glass of water cold in my hand, and I heard my son's voice, low and amused. "Honestly, Britt, I can't wait until this place is mine." I froze. My fingers tightened around the glass. Brittany giggled. "Ours, you mean? When are you going to talk to her about moving to a nursing home or something? This house is worth like, what, $350? We could flip it or rent it out." "She'd never go for that," Kevin said. I could hear the smile in his voice. "But it doesn't matter. She's got maybe 10, 15 years left if we're lucky. Less if her blood pressure keeps acting up. Then Derek and I split everything 50-50, and I'm buying you that ring you wanted." My breath caught. The hallway tilted slightly, and I put my free hand against the wall to steady myself. "God, I know," Brittany said. "But living here is so depressing. The wallpaper is from the 90s, and she always smells like pine sol and old lady perfume. I can barely stand Sunday dinners." Kevin laughed, actually laughed. "Dude, I know. She's so disgusting. The way she dresses, those awful cardigans with the pilling on the sleeves, and she chews so loud. I literally can't look at her sometimes without wanting to gag." There was a pause, then Brittany's voice, softer but no less cruel. "Do you think she knows how pathetic she is?" "Nah," Kevin said. "She's oblivious. Just keeps baking cookies and doing laundry like she's still useful or something. Honestly, the day I don't have to see her face anymore is going to be the best day of my life." They both laughed. I stood there in the dim hallway, the glass of water trembling in my hand. The ice cubes clinked softly. My reflection stared back at me from the framed mirror by the linen closet. A 62-year-old woman with gray hair pinned back, wearing a cardigan with pilling on the sleeves. Pathetic, disgusting, oblivious. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but the tears didn't come. Instead, something else settled over me, cold and clarifying, like the first frost of the season. I turned around, my steps careful and deliberate, and walked back downstairs. I poured the water into the sink and watched it swirl down the drain. The timer on the oven beeped. 14 minutes. I pulled the cookies out, golden and perfect, and set them on the cooling rack. The cinnamon smell filled the kitchen again, sweet and warm and utterly meaningless. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed my boys breakfast before school, where Robert and I had paid bills and planned vacations, where I'd signed my name on his death certificate with shaking hands. I folded my hands in my lap and stared at the wallpaper Brittany hated, pale yellow with tiny blue flowers. Robert had helped me hang it in 1996. We'd argued about the pattern, and he'd won. I'd grown to love it. But now, sitting in the soft glow of the overhead light, I realized something. I didn't want to love it anymore. I didn't want to love this house, or these Sunday dinners, or the weight of being useful to people who found me disgusting. I didn't want to be their mother anymore, not the way I had been. I reached for the notepad by the phone, the one where I kept grocery lists and reminders, and I wrote 3 words in careful script. Call the lawyer. Then I tore off the page, folded it twice, and tucked it into the pocket of my awful cardigan. Upstairs, I could still hear them laughing. Before the story continues, please leave a like and comment your age and where you're watching from, so I can see how far these stories are reaching and how many hearts they're touching. I woke up Monday morning at 6:30, the way I always did, though I'd barely slept. The house was still dark, and I lay there listening to the furnace kick on, feeling the warmth push through the vents. Kevin's door was closed when I passed it on my way to the bathroom. I wondered if Brittany had stayed over. I used to enforce rules about that. Now I just looked the other way. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed as I stood at the kitchen window, watching the neighbor's cat pick its way across the frost-covered lawn. My hands wrapped around the mug, the one that said, "World's Best Mom," that Derek had given me for Mother's Day 15 years ago. The letters were faded now, worn down by thousands of trips through the dishwasher. The notepad was still on the counter where I'd left it. Call the lawyer. I stared at those 3 words while I sipped my coffee, black with 1 sugar, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a hollow clarity, like someone had scooped out everything soft inside me and left only the framework. My phone buzzed at 7:15. Derek, right on schedule. "Hey, Ma." His voice was bright, performative. "How's it going?" "Fine, sweetheart. How are you?" "Yeah, good. Listen, I've got a situation." There was always a situation. My car needs new brakes, and Jessica's hours got cut at work. I'm short about $800. Could you help me out? Just until my commission check comes through. $800. Last month it was $1,200 for their water heater. The month before, $600 for Jessica's dental work. I kept a ledger in my desk drawer, not because I expected repayment, but because some part of me needed to see the numbers accumulate, needed proof of my usefulness. "Of course," I heard myself say. "I'll transfer it this afternoon." "You're the best, Ma. Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without you." I knew exactly what he'd do. He'd call Kevin, then Kevin would call me. The cycle would continue until there was nothing left to give. "I love you," I said, and I meant it. That was the worst part. I loved him completely, even as I understood he would drain me dry and never notice. "Love you too. Give Kevin a hug for me." The line went dead. I transferred the money before I finished my coffee. The memories came in fragments, the way they always did when I was alone. Robert's funeral, 8 years ago this past June. The church had been full. He'd been a beloved high school teacher, but I only remembered standing between my sons at the graveside, their hands on my shoulders, thinking, I have to be strong for them. They need me to be strong. Kevin had been 21 then, Derek 24. Men, technically, but still my boys, still needing their mother. Kevin had cried through the entire service. Derek had stood stone-faced, his jaw clenched. Afterward, in the fellowship hall, people kept telling me how lucky I was to have such devoted sons. "They'll take care of you now," Mrs. Henderson from church had said, squeezing my hand. But that's not what happened. 3 months after the funeral, Kevin had come to me with a business proposal, He wanted to open a food truck, gourmet grilled cheese, he said, with craft ingredients. He had a friend with restaurant experience. He had a business plan. He just needed $30,000 to get started. I'd cashed in one of Robert's insurance bonds and written the check. The food truck lasted 11 months before it folded. Kevin never mentioned the money again, and I never asked. Derek had been different. He didn't ask for one large sum. He asked for small amounts constantly. 300 here, 500 there. Always with a story about unexpected expenses, bad luck, timing. Always with the promise of repayment that never came. Over 6 years I'd given him. I checked my ledger once and never looked again. Over $40,000. I'd worked extra shifts at the hospital when Robert first got sick, saving every penny to keep us afloat. After he died, I'd stretched his pension and my Social Security, clipping coupons, shopping sales, wearing the same clothes year after year. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to have something to give my sons when they needed it. And they always needed it. The doorbell rang at 4:30, and I knew before I opened it that it would be Aunt Carol. She visited the first Monday of every month, a tradition she'd started after Robert died, to check on me. What she actually did was inventory my failings. Martha. She swept past me in a cloud of drugstore perfume, her critical gaze already scanning the entryway. You really should steam clean these carpets. They're looking dingy. Hello, Carol. Would you like some tea? If it's not too much trouble. She settled into Robert's armchair, the one no one else was allowed to sit in, and crossed her ankles. Her stockings made a soft shushing sound. Is Kevin home? Upstairs. Still unemployed, I assume. I filled the kettle and set it on the stove. He's looking. Martha. Her voice sharpened. That boy is 29 years old. You're enabling him. You always have, with both of them. That's why Derek is constantly in financial trouble out in Arizona. You never taught them to stand on their own 2 feet. My hand tightened on the kettle handle. The metal was cold and smooth under my palm. Robert always said you were too soft, Carol continued. And now look. Kevin's living off you like a parasite, and Derek calls you every time he needs a bailout. You've turned them into children. I poured the hot water over the tea bags, chamomile for her, Earl Grey for me, and carried the cups to the living room. My hands were perfectly steady. You're probably right, I said, sitting down across from her. Carol blinked, surprised. In 30 years, I'd never agreed with her. I probably was too soft, I continued, my voice mild. I probably should have been harder on them, set more boundaries, let them fail. Well, Carol picked up her teacup, mollified. It's never too late to start. I smiled at her. A real smile, not the practiced one I usually wore. You're absolutely right, Carol. It's never too late. We drank our tea in silence. Through the ceiling, I could hear Kevin's footsteps, the creak of his bed as he flopped onto it. Brittany's higher-pitched laugh filtered down through the vents. She's so disgusting. The day I don't have to see her face anymore is going to be the best day of my life. Carol finished her tea and stood, brushing invisible crumbs from her slacks. I should go. Bridge club tonight. Try to work on Kevin, Martha, for his own good. I will, I promised. I walked her to the door and watched her drive away in her pristine sedan. Then I went to my bedroom, opened my desk drawer, and pulled out the ledger where I'd tracked every dollar given to Derek. $43,200 over 6 years. I opened my laptop, the one Derek had taught me to use for email, and I Googled 3 things: sell house fast, estate lawyers near me, and best places to retire alone. The search results glowed on the screen. I clicked the first link. Upstairs, Kevin was laughing again. Tuesday morning, I called Mr. Patterson's office before breakfast. His receptionist, a woman named Diane who'd gone to high school with Derek, answered on the second ring. Patterson and Associates, how may I help you? Hi, Diane. This is Martha Harrington. I need to schedule a consultation with Mr. Patterson. Estate planning. There was a pause. Of course, Mrs. Harrington. Is everything all right? People always asked that when widows called lawyers, as if we were only allowed legal advice in emergencies. Everything's fine, I said, my voice steady. I just need to update some things. She booked me for 10 o'clock that morning. A cancellation, she said. Lucky timing. I didn't believe in luck anymore. I believed in decisions. Mr. Patterson's office smelled like leather and old books, the kind of smell that was supposed to convey trust and stability. He'd handled Robert's estate after the funeral, had sat across from me in this same chair while I signed documents with shaking hands, my sons flanking me like sentries. He'd been kind then, patient. He'd explained everything twice because I couldn't focus through the grief. Now, 8 years later, he looked older, grayer, but his eyes were still sharp behind his wire-rimmed glasses. Martha. He stood to shake my hand, his grip firm. It's good to see you. Diane said you wanted to discuss estate planning? I want to change my will, I said, settling into the leather chair. And I need to know my options for liquidating assets quickly. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he maintained his professional composure. He'd been a lawyer for 40 years. Nothing truly surprised him. All right, let's start with the will. Your current document leaves everything split equally between Kevin and Derek, correct? Yes. And you want to change that distribution? I folded my hands in my lap, the same way I'd folded them Sunday night at the kitchen table. I want to change everything, Mr. Patterson. I want to sell my house, liquidate my accounts, and leave. I don't want Kevin or Derek to know until after it's done. Now he did look surprised. He set down his pen and leaned back in his chair, studying me. Martha, that's a significant decision. May I ask what's prompting this? I could have told him about Sunday night, about the words I'd heard through the cracked door, about the years of watching my savings disappear into Derek's bank account and my dignity disappear under Brittany's smirks. But I didn't owe Mr. Patterson my pain. I only owed him honesty about what I wanted. I've been their safety net for too long, I said simply, and I'm tired. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, let's talk about your options. For the next hour, he walked me through the process. The house was titled solely in my name. Robert had set it up that way to protect me, so I could sell it without anyone's permission. My bank accounts, my CDs, my bonds, all mine. Kevin had access to my checking account, Mr. Patterson noted, so I'd need to open new accounts and transfer funds carefully. You'll want to work with a realtor who specializes in quick sales, he said, jotting notes on a legal pad. Cash buyers, minimal contingencies. It'll mean accepting slightly below market value, but you could close in 2 to 3 weeks. That's perfect. And your new will? He looked up at me. What do you want it to say? I'd thought about this all night, lying awake while Kevin snored down the hall. I want to leave them each $1 and a letter explaining why. Mr. Patterson didn't flinch. That's legally sound. A nominal bequest prevents them from claiming they were accidentally omitted. The letters aren't legally binding, but they're meaningful. He paused. Martha, have you considered that they might contest this? Try to claim undue influence or diminished capacity? I'm 62 years old, Mr. Patterson. I'm a retired nurse. I have no dementia, no cognitive decline, and no one is forcing me to do this. If they want to waste money on lawyers, that's their choice. But they won't win. He smiled then, a small, sad smile. No, they won't. He tapped his pen against the legal pad. I'll draft the new will today. You can come back Friday to sign it. In the meantime, I'll give you the name of a realtor I trust, Jane Chen. She's discreet and efficient. I took the business card he slid across the desk. Jane Chen, Willow Creek Realty. Her photo showed a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a professional smile. Thank you, I said, standing. Mr. Patterson stood too, and for a moment he looked like he wanted to say something else. Then he just extended his hand again. Good luck, Martha. I mean that. I don't need luck, I said. I just need a plan. Wednesday afternoon, I met Jane Chen at the Riverside Cafe, A small coffee shop on the edge of town where I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. I'd told Kevin I was going to the grocery store. He hadn't looked up from his laptop. Jane was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a portfolio folder and 2 cups of coffee. She stood when she saw me, her handshake confident and warm. "Mrs. Harrington, thank you for meeting me. Mr. Patterson speaks very highly of you." We sat down, and she slid one of the coffees toward me. "I wasn't sure how you take it, so I got cream and sugar on the side." "Black is fine." I wrapped my hands around the cup, grateful for the warmth. October had turned cold overnight, the kind of cold that settled into your bones. Jane opened her portfolio. "Mr. Patterson mentioned you're looking to sell quickly and quietly. I specialize in situations like this: divorce, relocation, estate issues. My clients value discretion, and I deliver results." "How quickly can it happen?" "With a cash buyer? 2 to 3 weeks from listing to closing." I have several investors who purchase properties sight unseen for rental portfolios. You'd get about 10 to 15% below market value, but there are no inspections, no appraisals, no financing contingencies, just a clean, fast transaction. I did the math in my head. Market value was $385. 15% less was about $327, still more than enough. "And the current occupants?" I asked carefully. "My son lives with me. He doesn't know I'm selling." Jane didn't even blink. "That's not uncommon. Legally, once you close, the new owner takes possession. Your son would need to vacate. Most investors give 30 days notice. But if you specify in the contract that immediate possession is required, we can arrange that too." "Immediate possession," I said. "I want it empty when he comes home." "Done." She made a note. "I'll need to walk through the property to take photos and measurements, but we can do that when your son is out. Do you have a day that works?" "Thursday. He goes to the gym from 11 to 1. He didn't, actually. He went to Brittany's apartment. But Jane didn't need to know that. "Perfect. I'll meet you at 11:15. We'll be in and out in an hour." She slid a contract across the table. "This is a standard listing agreement. Take it home, read it over. If you have questions, call me. If you're ready to proceed, sign it and I'll get started immediately." I looked down at the contract. The header read, "Exclusive right to sell." Below that, in smaller print, "Seller authorizes agent to market and sell the property located at 47 Maple Drive." My home. The house where I'd raised my sons, buried my husband's memory, baked 1,000 Sunday dinners. I was going to sell it to a stranger and disappear. I picked up the pen Jane offered and signed my name. My handwriting was steady, each letter clear and deliberate. Martha J. Harrington. "Welcome to your new life," Jane said softly. Thursday morning, I drove to the Willow Creek Credit Union, a small branch I'd never used before. Kevin banked at First National downtown, and Derek used some online bank in Arizona. This place was mine, anonymous. The account manager was a young man named Tyler, with a nervous smile and a firm handshake. I told him I wanted to open a new checking and savings account. He walked me through the paperwork, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "We'll need an initial deposit," he said. "Minimum of $25 to open." I wrote a check from my old account, the one Kevin could see, for exactly $25. Tomorrow, after Jane's walkthrough, I'd begin transferring everything else: the CDs, the bonds, the life insurance money I'd been hoarding for 8 years, thinking I'd need it for emergencies. This was the emergency: saving myself. Tyler handed me a temporary debit card and a deposit slip. "Your permanent card will arrive in 7 to 10 business days. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mrs. Harrington?" "No," I said, sliding the card into my wallet. "This is perfect." I drove home in silence, the radio off, just the sound of the engine and the tires on pavement. When I pulled into the driveway, Kevin's car was there. He was home early. I found him in the kitchen, making a sandwich. Brittany was perched on the counter, scrolling through her phone. Neither of them looked up when I walked in. "Hey, Ma," Kevin said, his mouth full. "Where were you?" "Grocery store," I said, setting my purse on the table. I'd stopped at the store on the way home and bought a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread as evidence. Did you eat lunch? Obviously. He gestured at the sandwich. We're going out tonight, so don't worry about dinner. All right. I put the milk in the refrigerator, my back to them. Have fun. Brittany finally looked up. Are you okay, Martha? You seem, I don't know, different. I turned to face her, and I smiled. A real smile, the first one I'd given her in 2 years. I feel different, I said. I feel really good, actually. She exchanged a glance with Kevin, and I could see the confusion in her eyes. Let her be confused. Let them both wonder. That's great, Kevin said slowly. Well, we're heading out around 6. Perfect, I said. I'll have the house to myself. After they left, I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out the contract Jane had given me. I read every word, every clause, every line of fine print. Then I folded it carefully and tucked it into the drawer where I kept the good silverware, the set Robert's mother had given us as a wedding present, the silverware I'd never use again. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in pretending. I'd spent 30 years, performing the role of devoted mother, but now I played it with intention. Every gesture calculated, every smile measured. I wasn't Martha the martyr anymore. I was Martha the magician, making myself disappear in plain sight. Sunday dinner, 1 week after signing Jane's contract. I made pot roast with carrots and potatoes, Kevin's favorite. Brittany showed up late, as always, and didn't apologize. She sat at the table scrolling through her phone while Kevin talked about a business opportunity his friend had mentioned, something about cryptocurrency and passive income. I nodded in all the right places and refilled his water glass twice. This is really good, Ma, Kevin said, his mouth full. You should make this more often. I'm glad you like it, sweetheart. Brittany looked up from her phone. Hey, Martha, do you think you could wash my gym clothes? I left them in Kevin's room and I need them for tomorrow. I smiled at her, the same smile I'd been practicing in the bathroom mirror, serene, unreadable. Of course, dear. After dinner, I washed her gym clothes by hand because she'd specified they couldn't go in the dryer. I hung them carefully on the drying rack in the laundry room, and I thought about how in 10 days she'd have to wash her own clothes. Or maybe she wouldn't. Maybe Kevin would take them to a laundromat and shrink them all, and she'd complain, and he'd have no one to fix it. The thought made me smile for real. Behind the performance, the machinery of my escape turned quietly. Monday morning, while Kevin slept until noon, I went to First National and withdrew $5,000 in cash. The teller, a woman I'd known for years, asked if everything was all right. Just fine, I said. I'm paying a contractor. They prefer cash. She didn't question it. Why would she? I was Martha Harrington, reliable and boring and predictable. I drove to the credit union and deposited $4,500 into my new account. The other $500 I kept in an envelope in my underwear drawer, tucked inside a pair of control-top pantyhose Kevin would never touch. Tuesday, I scanned every important document I owned. Robert's death certificate, my nursing license, the deed to the house, our marriage certificate, the boys' birth certificates. I uploaded them to a cloud storage account I'd created with a new email address Kevin didn't know existed. Then I shredded the originals and buried them in the recycling bin under a week's worth of junk mail. Wednesday, I transferred the first CD, $20,000, into my new account. The bank required a phone call to authorize it. The representative asked security questions: mother's maiden name, first pet, elementary school. I answered each one correctly and listened to the electronic confirmation tone. Your transfer will complete in 3 to 5 business days. Thank you, I said, and hung up. That night, Kevin came downstairs while I was folding laundry. He leaned against the doorframe, watching me match his socks, the ones with holes in the heels that I'd been meaning to throw away. You seem happy lately, he said. I looked up at him, my hands full of his clothes. My son, the baby I'd rocked through colic and night terrors. The boy who'd cried when he skinned his knee and made me construction paper cards on Mother's Day. Do I? I said. Yeah. Like, weirdly happy. Did something happen? I'm just grateful, I said, folding a t-shirt. Grateful to have you here. Grateful for our time together. He looked uncomfortable. Kevin had never been good with sentiment. Okay, well, cool. I'm going back upstairs. Good night, sweetheart. After he left, I finished folding his laundry and set it in the basket outside his door. He probably wouldn't bring it inside for 3 days, but that was fine. I wouldn't be here to see it. Derek called Thursday afternoon. I was at the kitchen table, reviewing the closing documents Jane had emailed. October 31st, 2 weeks from today. Halloween. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hey, Ma. His voice was strained. I've got a situation. I closed my laptop. What kind of situation? Jessica's car died. Transmission's shot. We need a new one, but we're short on the down payment. I know I just asked for money, but this is an emergency. Could you maybe spot us $2,000? $2,000. The number barely registered anymore. I'd given him so much that individual amounts had lost meaning. Of course, I said. I'll transfer it today. You're a lifesaver, Ma. Seriously, I promise I'll pay you back as soon as… Derek. I cut him off gently. You don't have to promise. I know you will. I didn't believe it, but the lie was easier than the truth. After I hung up, I transferred the money from my old account, the one that was almost empty now, drained like a swimming pool at summer's end. Let him have it. Let him think I was still the bottomless well he could draw from forever. In 12 days, the well would run dry, and he'd finally learn to dig his own. Aunt Carol appeared Friday afternoon, unannounced as usual. I was boxing up books in the den, a room Kevin never entered, and I heard her car in the driveway. I shoved the half-full box into the closet and met her at the door. Martha, I was in the neighborhood. She wasn't. She lived 20 minutes away. I thought I'd stop by. How lovely. Come in, I'll make coffee. She settled into her usual spot, her critical gaze sweeping the living room. You've rearranged the photos. Have I? I hadn't, but she always found something to comment on. We drank coffee and she told me about her bridge club drama. Someone had accused someone else of cheating, and I made sympathetic noises while mentally reviewing my packing list. Kitchen items, Monday, clothes, Tuesday, personal documents already secure, photos. The photos were the hardest part. Are you listening, Martha? I blinked. Of course. You were saying about Helen and the Trump suit. Carol narrowed her eyes. You seem distracted. Just tired, I said. I haven't been sleeping well. You should try melatonin. Works wonders. She stood, brushing imaginary lint from her slacks. I should go. But Martha, seriously, have you talked to Kevin about getting a job? He can't live off you forever. I'm working on it, I said, walking her to the door. After she left, I pulled the box back out of the closet and continued packing. Books first. The novels Robert had loved, the nursing textbooks from my training, the photo albums from when the boys were small. I wrapped each one carefully and stacked them in the box. These would go to storage, a climate-controlled unit I'd rented under my new address in Pennsylvania. Jane had recommended a moving company that worked overnight. They'd come Halloween night, while Kevin was presumably out at some party, and they'd empty the house of everything I wanted to keep. Everything else, the furniture, the kitchenware, the knickknacks and curtains and carpets Brittany hated, would stay. Let the new owners deal with it. Or let Kevin watch strangers haul away his inheritance, piece by piece. I didn't care anymore which. The final weekend arrived with unseasonable warmth, one last gasp of Indian summer before November's chill. Saturday morning, Kevin announced he and Brittany were driving to the city for the day. Some concert, he said. They'd be back late. Have fun, I told him, handing him a $20 bill. Get something to eat. He pocketed the money without thanking me and left. I spent the day packing in earnest. The movers were coming Monday night. I'd moved the date up, suddenly urgent to be gone. Jane had called Friday with good news. The buyer wanted to close early. October 29th, 3 days from now. "Is that all right?" Jane had asked. "I know it's faster than we discussed." "It's perfect," I'd said. Now, standing in my bedroom, I pulled suitcases from the top shelf of the closet and began folding clothes. I didn't need much. A week's worth of outfits, my good coat, comfortable shoes. I was driving to Pennsylvania, a 12-hour trip, and I'd packed the car with essentials: toiletries, medications, my laptop, the cash from the underwear drawer. Everything else would follow later, delivered to the address in Harrisburg, where I'd rented a furnished apartment site unseen. I worked methodically, room by room, taking only what mattered. In the den, I packed Robert's Purple Heart from Vietnam. In the kitchen, I packed my mother's recipe box. In the living room, I took down the photo from our 20th anniversary and left the empty nail hole in the wall. Let Kevin wonder about that. Sunday night, my last night in the house, I walked through each room after Kevin went to bed. I stood in the kitchen where I'd baked 10,000 meals, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents, the master bedroom where Robert had died, his hand in mine, whispering, "Take care of the boys." I'd done that. I'd taken care of them for 8 years. I'd taken care of them so well that they'd never learned to take care of themselves. Now it was my turn. I went to bed at midnight, setting my alarm for 5 a.m. In 14 hours, I'd walk out of this house for the last time. In 14 hours, I'd stop being their mother and start being myself. I slept better than I had in years. Monday, October 29th. The sky was gray and heavy with the promise of rain when I drove to Mr. Patterson's office for the last time. I'd left the house at 6 a.m. one before Kevin woke up, leaving a note on the kitchen counter that said, "Ran some errands. Might be out late. There's lasagna in the fridge. Mom." The lasagna was a lie. There was nothing in the fridge. But Kevin wouldn't check until dinner time, and by then it wouldn't matter. Mr. Patterson's conference room smelled like coffee and paper. Jane was already there, along with her husband Richard, a quiet man in his 50s who ran a property management company. He was the cash buyer. The papers were spread across the table in neat stacks: deed transfer, closing disclosure, bill of sale. "Are you ready, Martha?" Mr. Patterson asked gently. I picked up the pen. I've been ready for 2 weeks. I signed my name 19 times. Each signature felt like unlocking a shackle. The house, the mortgage-free deed, the property transfer. The final one was the closing disclosure. Sale price $327,000. After fees and Mr. Patterson's retainer, I'd walk away with $314,600 wired directly to my new account. Richard Chen slid a check across the table, a certified check for the escrow holdback. "Mrs. Harrington, I want you to know we'll take good care of your home." "It's not my home anymore," I said. "It's yours. Do whatever you want with it." Jane walked me out to my car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic packed with suitcases and boxes. Everything I owned that mattered was in that car or already shipped to Pennsylvania. "Are you sure you don't want to stay and see his reaction?" Jane asked. She was smiling, but there was concern in her eyes. "No," I said. "I don't need to see it. I just need to be gone." She hugged me, an unexpected gesture that made my throat tighten. "Good luck, Martha. You're braver than you know." I drove out of Willow Creek at 2:47 p.m., the town shrinking in my rearview mirror. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I turned on the radio and drove toward Pennsylvania, toward a life where no one needed anything from me, where I could finally just be. Kevin and Brittany pulled into the driveway at 6:15 p.m. They'd spent the day at the mall. Kevin had mentioned something about Brittany needing new boots. He parked his car in its usual spot and helped her carry shopping bags to the front door. The porch light wasn't on. That was the first strange thing. His mother always turned on the porch light before dark. Kevin unlocked the door and pushed it open. "Ma, we're home." Silence. He stepped inside and froze. The entryway was empty. The table where his mother kept her keys and purse, gone. The mirror on the wall, gone. He walked into the living room, Brittany behind him, and his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. Nothing. No furniture, no curtains, no photos on the walls, Just empty rooms and bare floors and nail holes where pictures used to hang. "What the fuck?" Brittany whispered. Kevin's heart hammered in his chest. "Ma?" He called louder, his voice cracking. "Mom?" He ran upstairs, taking the steps 2 at a time. His bedroom door was open. His bed, gone. His dresser, gone. His clothes, his laptop, his TV, everything was gone. The room was completely empty, except for a single cardboard box in the corner labeled Kevin in black marker. "Oh my God," Brittany said from the doorway. "Kevin, what's happening?" He couldn't answer. He couldn't breathe. He ran to his mother's room, empty. The bathroom, empty. Derek's old room, empty. Every closet, every drawer, every surface stripped bare. He stumbled back downstairs and found a man in the kitchen. A stranger, Asian, 50s, wearing khakis and a polo shirt, holding a clipboard. "Who the fuck are you?" Kevin demanded. "What did you do with my mother? Where's all our stuff?" The man looked up, startled. "I'm Richard Chen. I'm the new owner of this property. Who are you?" The words didn't make sense. New owner. Kevin shook his head. "This is my house. My mother's house. You can't. Richard held up a hand. "Sir, I closed on this property this afternoon. The previous owner, Martha Harrington, sold it to me 3 weeks ago. I have the deed right here." He pulled a document from his clipboard. Kevin snatched it from his hands. His eyes scanned the page, but the words swam together. Sale date, transfer of ownership. Martha J. Harrington, seller. Richard Chen, buyer. "No," Kevin said. "No, this is wrong. She didn't." He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and called his mother's number. It rang 4 times, then her voicemail. "You've reached Martha. I can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message." "Mom, what the fuck is going on?" he screamed into the phone. "Where are you? Where's all our stuff?" "Call me back right fucking now." He hung up and immediately called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. He called 7 times, each message more frantic than the last, before Richard cleared his throat. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave the property. You're trespassing." "Trespassing?" Kevin's voice cracked. "I live here. This is my house." "Not according to this deed," Richard said calmly. "Your mother sold the property. That's legal. You have no claim here. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll call the police." Brittany grabbed Kevin's arm. "Come on, let's go. We'll figure this out." Kevin let her pull him toward the door, his mind spinning. This couldn't be real. His mother wouldn't do this. She wouldn't just sell the house without telling him. She wouldn't leave him with nothing. At the front door, he saw it. A white envelope taped to the doorframe. His name written on it in his mother's careful handwriting. He tore it open with trembling fingers. The letter was short, typed, impersonal. "Kevin, you said I disgusted you. You said you couldn't wait until you didn't have to see my face anymore. I've granted your wish. I sold the house. I liquidated all my assets. I've left Willow Creek, and you will never find me. Your belongings are in a storage unit at Safekeep Storage on Route 9, Unit 127. I've paid for 30 days. After that, you're on your own. I spent 8 years taking care of you after your father died. I gave you money, food, shelter, and endless second chances. You repaid me with contempt. You and Derek will each inherit $1 from my estate, as required by law. Everything else is mine, and I've taken it with me. Good luck with the rent, Mom." Kevin read it 3 times, then he crumpled it in his fist and screamed, a raw animal sound that echoed through the empty house. Brittany stood beside him, her face pale. "Kevin, what does it say?" He couldn't answer. He stumbled out to his car and sat in the driver's seat, staring at the house that wasn't his anymore, that had never been his, that he'd counted on inheriting like it was owed to him. His phone buzzed. Derek calling. "Kevin, what the fuck?" Derek's voice was panicked. "I just got a call from First National saying Mom closed all her accounts. And I got this insane voicemail from her saying she's gone and she's not giving us any more money. What is happening?" "She sold the house," Kevin said, his voice hollow. "She sold everything. She's gone." "What?" Derek was shouting. "She can't just— Where did she go? Did she say where she went?" "No." Kevin looked down at the crumpled letter in his lap. "She said we'll never find her." There was a long silence. Then Derek, quieter. "What did we do?" Kevin closed his eyes. He saw his mother standing in the hallway Sunday night, holding a glass of water. He saw her face through the crack in his door, just for a moment, before she turned away. He'd thought she hadn't heard him. He'd thought she didn't know. She'd known everything. "I don't know," Kevin lied. But he did know. He knew exactly what they'd done. Tuesday morning, Kevin drove to Safekeep Storage with a hangover and 3 hours of sleep. He'd spent the night on Brittany's couch. She'd been sympathetic at first, then increasingly cold as the reality sank in. Around midnight, she'd asked him where he planned to live. He hadn't had an answer. Unit 127 was at the back of the facility, a 10 by 10 space with a rolling metal door. Kevin's hands shook as he entered the code his mother had texted him at 3 a.m. The only message she'd sent in response to his 17 voicemails. Just 6 digits. No words. The door rolled up with a metallic screech. Inside were boxes, maybe 20 of them, neatly stacked and labeled in his mother's handwriting. Kevin, clothes. Kevin, books. Kevin, electronics. Everything he owned, packed with the same careful attention she'd given to folding his laundry every Sunday night. In the center, sitting on top of a box marked Kevin, Personal, was another envelope, smaller this time, cream-colored. He opened it with numb fingers. "Kevin, this is the last thing I'll ever give you. Inside these boxes, you'll find everything you owned. I didn't throw anything away. That should tell you something about who I am versus who you thought I was. I also included some things you'll need. First month's rent for a studio apartment on Elm Street. Lease is in your name, starts November 1st. A list of job openings in Willow Creek, and the phone number for a therapist. Her name is Dr. Susan Walsh. I've prepaid for 6 sessions. Whether you use them is up to you. I'm not doing this to punish you, Kevin. I'm doing this because you're 29 years old and you've never learned to stand on your own. I enabled that. I made it easy for you to use me. But I'm not your safety net anymore. I'm not your bank account or your maid or your verbal punching bag. If you want a relationship with me someday, a real one built on mutual respect, you know how to reach Mr. Patterson. He'll forward any letters you send, but I won't respond until I see evidence that you've changed. Not words, evidence. I love you. I always will. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. Find yourself, Kevin. Then maybe we can find each other again. Mom. Clipped to the letter was a check for $2,400 made out to Elm Street Apartments and a business card for Dr. Susan Walsh, LMFT. Kevin stood there holding them, surrounded by boxes of his own belongings, and for the first time in his life, he understood what his mother had been carrying all these years. Everything. She'd been carrying everything. And he'd called her disgusting. In Phoenix, Derek sat at his kitchen table staring at a similar letter. His had arrived by certified mail Tuesday morning, along with a bank statement showing Martha's account, the one he'd been draining for 6 years, now had a balance of $1.47. Derek. I kept a ledger. Did you know that? Every dollar I gave you I wrote down. Date, amount, reason. It's $43,200. I'm not asking you to pay it back. That money is gone, and so is the woman who gave it to you. But I want you to know the cost, not just in dollars. In the mornings I worked extra shifts when my knees hurt, in the vacations I never took, in the retirement I postponed year after year because my sons always needed just a little more. You're 32 years old, Derek. You have a wife and a life in Arizona. It's time you lived it without my money. I've closed all my accounts. Changed my phone number. Left Willow Creek. If you need to reach me, you can send letters through Mr. Patterson's office. But don't ask for money. Don't ask where I am. Don't ask me to rescue you. Ask yourself why you needed rescuing in the first place. I hope you find the answer. Mom. Derek read it twice, then called Kevin. They talked for 2 hours, the longest conversation they'd had in years. They compared letters. They tried to piece together clues about where she'd gone. Pennsylvania, maybe, based on the postmark on Derek's envelope. But Pennsylvania was big, and their mother had always been smarter than they'd given her credit for. We fucked up, Derek said finally. Yeah, Kevin agreed. We really did. Aunt Carol received her letter Wednesday afternoon. Unlike the boys, hers came with no money, no prepaid therapy, no apartment lease. Just words. Carol. For 30 years, you've criticized every choice I've made. My parenting, my housekeeping, my marriage, my grief. I listened because you're my sister, and I thought I owed you that respect. But you never respected me. You treated me like a project to fix, a failure to correct. I'm not writing to punish you. I'm writing to tell you that I'm done accepting your judgment. I'm 62 years old, Carol. I'm tired, and I'm finally choosing peace over obligation. Don't look for me. Don't ask the boys where I am. Let me go. I hope you find whatever it is you were searching for in other people's imperfections. I hope it makes you happy. Martha. Carol sat in her pristine living room, the letter trembling in her hands, and for the first time in decades she cried, not for Martha, for herself. For the sister she'd pushed away with every critical word, every unsolicited opinion, every reminder that Carol had always been the successful one, the organized one, the one who did everything right. She picked up the phone to call Martha. Then she remembered. Martha was gone, and Carol had no one to blame but herself. 3 months later, Kevin sat in Dr. Walsh's office for his 9th session. He'd used the 6 prepaid ones, then started paying out of pocket from his new job, assistant manager at the hardware store on Main Street. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't pay much. But it was his. I keep thinking about that night, he told Dr. Walsh. The thing I said about her being disgusting. I've said worse things, honestly. But that one, I think that one broke something. Do you know why you said it? Dr. Walsh asked. Kevin was quiet for a long time. Because it was easier than admitting I was the disgusting one. Living off her, using her, taking everything and giving nothing back. He looked down at his hands. I was 29 years old, and I couldn't even do my own laundry. And now? Now I can. He smiled, but it was sad. Turns out it's not that hard. None of it was that hard. I never had to learn because she always did it for me. Dr. Walsh nodded. Have you written to her? 3 times. Mr. Patterson's been forwarding them. I don't know if she reads them. He paused. I told her I'm sorry. I told her I got a job. I told her I'm in therapy. But I don't know if sorry is enough. It's a start, Dr. Walsh said gently. Healing takes time, for both of you. 6 months after Martha disappeared, Kevin came home to his studio apartment, small, sparsely furnished, but clean and his, and found a postcard in his mailbox. The front showed a beach at sunset, waves rolling onto white sand, no location marked. The handwriting on the back was his mother's. Kevin, Mr. Patterson forwarded your letters. I read every word. I'm proud of you for getting help, for getting a job, for standing on your own. I'm not ready to see you yet. Maybe I never will be. But I wanted you to know I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm happy. I wake up every morning and drink my coffee on a balcony overlooking the ocean. I've made friends. I've taken painting classes. I've learned that I'm more than just someone's mother. You asked in your last letter if I could ever forgive you. The truth is, I already have. Forgiveness isn't the hard part. The hard part is trusting that you've changed, that if I let you back into my life, you won't take me for granted again. That you see me as a person, not a resource. Prove it to me, Kevin. Not with words, with years, with consistency, with the man you become. When you're ready, really ready, Mr. Patterson knows how to reach me. But don't rush. This isn't a race. It's a journey. I'm finally on mine. Make sure you're on yours. Mom. Kevin stood in his tiny kitchen, the postcard in his hands, and he cried. Not the angry, panicked tears from that first night. These were different, quieter, heavier. He put the postcard on his refrigerator, held in place by a magnet shaped like a sunflower. Every morning for the next 3 years, he'd see it there while making coffee. A reminder, a promise, a hope. And every morning he'd try to be the man his mother believed he could become, the man he should have been all along.